Welcome to another episode of Chax Chat. Join Chad Chilius and me, Dax Castro, where each week we wax poetic about document accessibility topics, tips, and the struggle of remediation and compliance. So sit back, grab your favorite mug of whatever, and let's get started.
Welcome everyone to the Chax Chat podcast. My name is Chad Chilius. I'm an Adobe certified instructor and one of the accessibility wizards here at Chax Training and Consulting.
And my name is Dax Castro. I'm one of the other accessibility wizards here at Chax Training Consulting. And Chad and I are both certified as accessible document specialists. And if you'd like your certification, head on over to accessibilityassociation.org/certifications and get more on it. How you doing, Chad?
Doing well. I know,
Awesome.
As I was saying, the weather here has been amazing. You know, it's been nice and cool in the mornings and very mild in the afternoon. So I'm enjoying this weather. Ready
Awesome.
for fall to be here.
I am too, but I'm also ready for our guest. Today we have Roy Samuelson, who's going to be talking to us about what he does for a living. So no better person to introduce Roy than Roy himself. So Roy, take it away, buddy.
Thanks. I'm Roy Samuelson, as he said, and thanks so much for being here, having me be here for you. The Chax Chat, I was practicing in my head to make sure I said it right. I think I got it. So
You got it.
Yes,
All
good
good.
job.
Yeah.
So what I do is I help blind people enjoy watching videos, not just access them. So I've voiced thousands of audio description projects for Netflix, HBO, and more. And now what I like to do is help companies turn accessibility into storytelling that actually lands, both inside audio description and outside. So whether it's choosing between a human or a synthetic voice, I want to make sure that the content connects. And the three words that I think are most important in my approach are clarity and impact and connection. So how's that?
That's great. Awesome.
But Roy, you know, just for our listeners, right? So like Chax Chat, we're all about creating documents and making documents accessible, right? And so everybody may not be familiar with exactly, you know, what you're referring to. So can you explain a little bit more about exactly what it is that you do?
Oh, I love it. So audio description is a way for blind people to watch movies or TV shows. And it's not just limited to TV shows or movies. It can be any visual content. And that could be a live production of a theater musical, or it could be a museum, or it could be a guided walking tour that even a museum exhibits can have access to the visuals. And so one of the ways I like to explain it is if you've ever listened to, a sports ball announcer, like a sports announcer giving the play-by-play of what's happening on the field.
Like a color commentator.
That thing, yes. You can tell my fluency in the sports ball. But during that commentary, you're listening, you know, back in the old days, it was listening to a radio where you get the play-by-play of what's happening on the field, and you get to actually experience it without seeing the field. In this context, a movie or a TV show is the field. And what I do is I read a script that's provided to me as a performer of audio description so that blind people can watch it. And now I'm going into the producing of audio description and also consulting on it. And there's some other really fun things that have branched out from that too.
You know, we met Roy at a recent conference, right? And I think I asked you this when I met you, Roy. So a lot of our listeners, I think, can relate to this because I've turned this on by accident on my TV, right? Sure. You know, here I am, the old guy with the remote. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But, you know, if you've ever turned it on, it goes beyond closed captioning, right? Because if you've ever turned it on, and I'm not going to do it correctly, Roy, but it'll be like Jim walks into a dark room and peers around and to see what, you know what I mean? It describes, how did I do? Did I do okay? Oh, no. But you know what I mean? Like, so you're giving people without sight the ability to experience it in the same way that somebody with sight would also experience it. Is that a good way of describing it?
That's great. And there's two other things I'd love to tag on to that. The first is it's not just for blind people. If you're cooking and you want to know what's going on the TV show, if you're driving a really long distance and you want to catch up on your favorite show, it gives you it turns a TV show into a podcast. And I think one of the points that I think you made by accidentally turning it on there is this experience, and I'm curious if you had this. When you first turn it on, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing what I'm seeing. It's too much. It's like cognitive overload. And then if it's done well, if the writing is aligned with the story, if the performer is aligned with the story, if the pauses, if the mix is right, if all the elements are just, I'm twiddling my hands, just perfect, then that experience becomes immersive. And after about like 2 to 5 minutes, you start to get it. And that getting it becomes that, oh, I'm in the zone now. And that's what our goal is for when audio description is done right.
I love it. And I love what you just said, Roy, when you were describing that. One of the things Dax and I say all the time is that accessibility benefits everyone. And what you just pointed out, right? Like if I'm cooking in the kitchen and the movie's on TV, I can still experience that movie without having to sit in front of the TV, right? And I know Dax is chomping at the bit to say something, so I'm going to hand it off to him and let him say his piece.
So I teach a course on video captioning, on captions, right? And I touch on audio description. And one of the things that I usually give people as the example is the Frozen trailer. So there is the Disney show Frozen has a trailer with audio description, and it's the scene where the moose and the snowman are out in the middle of the ice, and there's all this action happening without real words. There's no spoken real words. It's just the, sounds and huffs and puffs and all of that. And the audio description fills in all the blanks of the nose falling off the carrot falling off the snowman's nose and that. And so I find that's a really good first touch for people to understand what audio descriptions are. But Roy, you corrected me before we got on the show about audio descriptions. Tell me a little bit more about that.
And I didn't mean it as a correction. It's okay. It's a personal preference of mine. And when I talk about audio description, it does for me make a difference between saying it pluralized, because it's a habit. It sounds logical. It's like, it's a collection of descriptions, right? And when those moments are being brought to life, it feels natural that it's, okay, there's more than one. And I get that assumption. I wrote a blog article about this, and I think one of the conclusions that I want to make is that audio description isn't, I'm going to bring up my article because I wrote it. I was really proud with how this came out, that audio description isn't a pile of verbal captions. It's not a set of interchangeable blurbs. It's craft. It's one continuous intentional performance. So if you think about music or editing or sound design, you wouldn't say, oh, the editings were great, or I love the music's on this film. The music's really made it. So if we're going to make that analogy, what we're doing is also bridging from this accessibility focus, which is what audio description is, but it's also tapping into the art and the craft of it, because that art and craft is a part of accessibility. That when our blind audiences are laughing at the same time as our sighted audiences, when we're immersing that experience, that is what we're trying to do. And when audio description meets that mark, that immersion means that the blind audience is along for the ride and not detached from that emotional experience. So the fact that you both laughed at I really like the music's on that concert, I think that resonates.
It's a really great point, because we do it. Yeah, like why did we make audio descriptions plural, but we would never say that about a music concert or something. It's a really interesting point that you bring up, right?
It brings the artistry into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we will link to your blog article in the show notes nice. If you go, we post this, we do both an audio version and a YouTube version of this podcast. So we will post in both the description for the podcast on the audio platform and in the YouTube description as well. So really great. You and I were talking at the Camp Coeur d'Alene accessibility conference that we were at, and which is such a great event. Huge shout out to Jeremy Seta, who puts that on, and just so much thought and caring goes into that event. Smaller event, but really impactful. But you were talking about something that was so interesting to me, which was being able to have the IMDb credits as a person who performs the audio description. I'd love to talk just a little bit about that struggle and that journey.
Yeah, credits matter. And I think one of the things that I started the adna.org, that's the Audio Description Network Alliance, to address this. That I've found that as a professional voice talent, a lot of my credits were not understood. So there's a selfish motivation there, but once I got over that selfish motivation, there was something else that was happening that I noticed our audiences were saying, Roy, why didn't you write that script like that for the audio description? And it's like, oh, someone else wrote it. Oh, they did such a great job. Well, that's language. And I think there's a way to allow for that communication to be like, oh, was it good audio description or bad audio description? Once we start distinguishing, oh, I really loved the writing on this, but Roy Samuelson sounded like my ex-boyfriend. I never want to hear that voice again. Like being able to craft that nuance and allow for that relativity. I imagine myself watching a TV show and just loving the actors, but being like the story sucks.
Sure.
Being able to say, oh God, I love this actor, but the story sucks, but I love the music and God, it looks so visually beautiful, but I didn't like, being able to make those distinctions by anchoring it with credits, it gives audiences something else to talk about. And I think that that's really a fascinating approach to be able to elevate the quality of what we're doing and also understand what really matters when it comes to how the audio description is coming across.
Well, and it's interesting that you point out there's so many people involved, right? I mean, I think you just described there's a writer, and then there's you call yourself an actor, right, Roy? Like as a audio description person, you're the talent and you're the actor.
I've been using the word performer. Yeah.
Performer. Okay. Yeah. I love that too. Yeah.
So yeah, to your point, it's been neat to see how that has changed. Please go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Not at all. Not at all. I think I was just like, I think I was actively being fascinated by discovering and learning about all of the people involved in the process, right? Because I think it's really easy for us to look at audio descriptions and be like, oh, somebody just did it, right? Yeah. But no, somebody's got to write it. Sure, somebody's got to edit it. And then there's the performer who's actually performing it. And I mean, it can be, to your point, it can be written beautifully, but the performer didn't come through, right? The performer didn't deliver. And so it's not as impactful as it could have been. And I guess vice versa too. The performer could be great, but the writing was bad, right? So man, it's just really, really intriguing to me, all of the actors involved, so cool.
I think about, as we were talking about this, Chad and Roy, I think one of the things that comes to mind to me is animators. You would never in a million years not have an animator in the credits. They spend hours, frame by frame by frame, adjusting pixels, rotoscoping out things and doing all this nuance. But it's really the actor's voice that brings the character to life. So someone could argue, well, they're just making it happen in the background and it's really not important. But we would never do that, right? Their craft and skill in the technical aspect of making that character come to life is a symbiotic relationship between the voice actor and the visual on screen. And I think your talent of doing the audio description really is that same thing. I've tried to watch movies that are in different languages without hearing the audio, because it's like I've turned on the English subtitle, the English voicing of, we watch a lot of space movies and they're mostly in Russian. And so my wife doesn't like to listen to the Russian, but I hate turning on the English version of it because it's so bad in a lot of circumstances that I would rather hear the raw emotion from the Russian voice, the person who's actually acting it. And I think that goes to kind of the opposite of audio description, in that you're this character that can do it either in a very engaging way or in a very vanilla way. And I think you really add to the experience for someone who is blind trying to understand and engage with the information.
It is a high wire act. And
Yeah.
I think about the difference between a theater actor performing in front of thousands of people and a film actor that's got a really intimate scene where the camera's 3 inches away from their face. That film actor is not doing less of a performance. It's a different kind of performance.
Mm-hmm.
That crediting, I'll share another link to another blog post related to that, that there's something about naming these different departments within audio description. About 5 or 6 years ago at the keynote for the American Council for the Blind, of the Blind, excuse me, they allowed me to share this process, and it hopefully shared why each of these roles matter, that the missing link in any of them, even quality control. And as more blind professionals work in this industry, it's important to be able to recognize, and for blind people to say, oh yeah, I want to be a professional in this, and here's the direction I want to go. I want to go in quality control, or I want to go in writing, or I want to go in performance, or I want to go into mixing or editing, that each of those can make an incredible difference. I really loved your dubbing analogy, by the way, when you're talking about the sci-fi shows, that the fact that you want to turn that off because it's not meeting that emotional resonance of the original, that is related to what we do in audio description. So there's a lot of tie-ins there.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to put out the URL for this is the adna.org. I had trouble finding it from a second ago as I was just natively trying to hunt for it, but it's the adna.org.
Yes.
So as we get close to the end here, because this is I want to give our audience some insight into how they can implement audio description into their content. So let's talk a bit about some of the players. I know I was under the impression that YouTube didn't have the ability to have audio description as a separate track, and you kind of corrected me on that. But let's talk a bit about how someone can implement audio description, or what the steps here are.
Sure. There's an asterisk to that, but I want to start by mentioning your pre-conference agenda, that I came to Idaho prepared with a keynote and a handout. And the very first sentence that you shared it was basically, the way I did it was wrong. And it was out the gate. It was like the very first sentence. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do now? And it was literally your sharing of how PDFs become accessible that I was able to revisit what I had prepared for, make some slight adjustments just based on the learning that I got from both of you, and be able to deliver something at the end of the keynote that not only did what I wanted to accomplish, but also brought me more opportunities because of how I applied accessibility. And I want to use that example to share, when it comes to audio description, that there's a lot of times when I'm consulting with companies that there's this hesitation and fear of doing it wrong. And in my experience in learning about PDFs is that as long as I'm going in the right direction, as long as I'm making the effort and learning as I'm going, and ideally doing it from the very beginning, that I'm going to be in a much better position. And I was able to own that, and the benefits that I got out of it. What was in it for me was not only accessibility, but also a better handout at the end of the keynote. And I think that's a really fair comparison to audio description. It's a compliment to both of you guys.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And we always say, Chad and I always say, some accessibility is better than no accessibility. And I mean, honestly, for anybody who's listening to this podcast for any length of time would know that we tell you, if you just describe your images and use headings in your document, just those two things, you've improved the accessibility of your document by 60%, right? Just that, nothing else, But yeah, so going back to the audio descriptions, what should our audience be doing to either add it, or what platforms should they be looking at, and kind of give me some of that.
Sure. Let's, and you also mentioned YouTube. The YouTube at this point, we started this interview about half an hour ago, so things could have changed, but my understanding is that there's certain YouTube videos that do allow for a toggle switch to turn on audio description, basically a separate track, similar to how captions get turned on YouTube. It's not rolled out completely. There's certain ways to go about it, But I think the more important question is, what is the goal of the video or the visuals that you want to have? What is the end goal? And does it really matter that that person is wearing a green shirt like I am? Or does it matter that they are emphatically, with that there's something about their delivery, that their face is showing such a empathy that we want to be able to witness that? What is the message that we want to give? And then secondly is to hire blind professionals to make sure that blind people are included in the process, because putting on a blindfold or, pretending like you're making a phone call will get you somewhat there, but the lived experience and compensating that experience of that work to a blind professional makes a world of difference. And while blindness is on a spectrum, there are people who have different levels of blindness. At least we're making sure that that connection is happening. And so those are the two things that I'd start with, and just to get people to get the ball rolling.
What's interesting about what Roy just said, when Dax and I teach classes about writing effective alternate text for images, the question we tell people to ask themselves is, what do you want the user experience to be?
Nice. Yes.
And that's fundamentally what you just said to us, right? You said the exact same thing. You got to think about what you want that user experience to be. And that helps to shape how you approach the problem, right? How you address that situation. So that's really cool. The similarities between, we're all in accessibility, but kind of two ends of the thermometer, if you will, but still, doing the same thing is cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was looking on YouTube, and they have an actual area that says add audio descriptions, and it walks you through how you can upload a separate audio file. What's really cool is that right now in YouTube, if you upload a video and you make a mistake and you can't just replace the video. You have to delete the post and actually make a new one. There's no swapping out for that same URL. Uh-huh. But for audio descriptions, you actually can. You can go in and delete the audio description that you previously put in and add a new one, which is really kind of nice, because it was such an arduous thing to get some views on a video, figure out there's a mistake, want to correct it, and you're like, now what do I do? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what I try to tell people when they're trying to decide whether or not you should have audio descriptions in a video is I play the video on a screen and minimized, or with something over top of it, so I can't do anything but hear it. And if I don't understand what's going on by just listening to it, and there's meaningful actions happening, then hey, you probably should consider an audio description, right?
And there's so many different approaches to it too.
Yeah.
I love it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are so excited, Roy, to have you on the show. We want to have you back to maybe talk about some of the mechanics or some of the process of actually developing audio description and making sure that we give people some really great insights into this area, because we want audio description to be more and more popular. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you.
Pleasure. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Roy. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed our guest, Roy, who was talking all about audio descriptions and the value of them in video and movies. We really appreciated having you on, Roy. My name is Chad Chilius.
And my name is Dax Castro, where every other week we unravel accessibility for you.
Thanks, guys.